Come on, King. Let me give you a hand, buddy.
Hey!
You idiot. That stuff doesn't work. What the?
Look, diamond upside down is a pussy. Come on, King!
If someone asks Jim who is the greatest wrestler of all time, who would he say?
But you can't just say so-and-so was the greatest of all time ever at this.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot.
I may get the chair, but I'm going to kill him. No, I'm going to tell you what. I might just torture him, and then I'm going to kill him.
He had great matches all the time with everybody, really, though.
Let me be a mid-card wrestler. Let me just scramble around. Treat me like a piece of garbage. Feed me garbage.
Let me tell you something. I'm hungry. I am really hungry.
He doesn't like Colt Cabana. That's not a secret.
Never in my sickest dreams did I imagine that there would be other people taking dives onto concrete floors, committing human suicide on my behalf. Like I'm the patron saint of the six sons of bitches.
Welcome to the patron saints of Six Sons of Bitches, your semi-regularly greatest wrestler ever podcast of choice. My name is Orchid and Colette of Live Laugh Lagerbomb and Violent People Radio, and I am joined as always by Colette Arend of Big Egg. I almost said Big Cage, an exploding egg match.
Big
but
Cage.
She is
the exploding egg match
Cage.
would be sick as hell.
It would be. Yes, of Big Egg fame. Colette, how are you doing?
I'm
this week / today.
I'm doing great. In the last 20 minutes, we've spoken a lot about Diamond Dallas Page, so I'm doing great. And by 20 minutes, I mean hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, not to go too far behind the podcast, but when I said that we could easily turn this into a one-part episode about DDP, my love of Paige Falkenberg, or the man formerly known as Paige Falkenberg, proved that to be a lie. I just kept talking about DDP, Orchid.
And I did too. And that's the thing. I could have also just, at some point, I will eagerly be able to say I need 2 episodes.
Well, like
which
you
I'm sure
asked
I
me
will at
to
some
introduce the episode, and I started talking about how he was like the savior of wrestlers, and also perhaps more importantly, just really good at wrestling.
Worse off, you did that entire thing without mentioning his zodiac sign.
No, I don't know his zodiac sign. I'm not good at the zodiac.
Oh, I know everyone. I know every.
I'm a bad queer.
I'm a bad queer great poet. He's a Cancer, which is abundantly clear as humanly possible. All right, editorial note. Diamond Dallas Page is not a Cancer. He's not even a Pisces. He is an Aries. Thank you, Colette, for keeping me accountable. But yeah, welcome to part 2 of our extremely long episode on Diamond Dallas Page, which is still not long enough. If me and Colette had our way, these trans women would be talking about this trans woman for about 6 weeks straight. But unfortunately, we don't have that time. Robert J. Kennedy Jr. be damned. I don't know what he has to do with this, but I'm sure he doesn't like trans people.
Yeah.
But you know who does like trans people? Diamond Dallas Page, I think. I'll find out. But trans people like him. And we left off by talking about the quintessential feud of 1997, Diamond Dallas Page versus Randy Savage.
Yeah.
And we will be pivoting right into the next bit of paginess, which also, I'm realizing that we didn't have a chance to talk about the dinner and a movie. Do you want to touch on that segment at all?
I do. I also want to say that we didn't get a chance to talk about what is truly the most quintessential bit of paginess, which is this motherfucker's ribs. They are always that starts during the Macho Man feud.
It does.
Like Macho Man starts
and it continues
busting up his ribs, and DDP just always seems to be injured after that. It's crazy. No matter how deep of a stretch he gets, his ribs are fucked up.
It's true. Even in his retirement match, he's got a little wrap on.
Yeah, he's got a little wrap on. He's in his retirement match. It's so cute. He gets a pair of tights made that simultaneously advertise DDP yoga, of course, because he is nothing if not a shameless self-promoter, which I adore in a person, frankly, so long as they're not also a monster. And also like he makes his like DDP diamond logo that has the WCW in it, but he replaces it with AEW. I love it so much. It's the small touches for me, truly.
It is.
So he starts taping up his ribs here, which becomes very important throughout 1998. But yeah, we definitely need to talk about the dinner and the movie thing. Because I remember this happening. Like, Clash of the Champions was like you've said many times over the course of our podcast now that you did not become a WCW person until Goldberg was kind of midway through his rise. So I think that you missed out on the dying days of the Clash of the Champions special. Like, Nitro put two things out to pasture for WCW, and that was WCW Saturday Night and the Clash of the Champions. Clash of the Champions, for lack of a better distinction, this would be like WCW's version of Saturday Night's Main Event, which is unfair because Clash came first and is better and has, you know, some of the most important shit to have ever happened in wrestling happen on Clash of the Champions, including this segment, in which the hosts of Dinner and a Movie, which was a TBS show where two dudes would cook food during movies and show you how to cook it. So like they would usually have two incels based on this segment. Chef Claude Mann and comedian Paul Gilmartin. And like usually it would be something like, you know, tonight on TBS 7:05, watch Dinner and a Movie with fried green tomatoes, and we'll show you how to make fried green tomatoes. And then like the theme song was like that one song that's like beans and cornbread. It's like elemental for me, like that, and like James Bond, June, and like I don't know, Cliffhanger, always on TBS in my brain, and Movies for Guys Who Like Movies, which one time they showed They Live, and they advertised it on Nitro, and they had Eric Bischoff come out to talk about how TBS was clearly showing They Live as part of a right-wing propaganda campaign against the New World Order. Which suggests to me that he had not seen They Live, but that's fine. So here, though, like the Dinner and a Movie folks are on the television promoting Dinner and a Movie, and they had Macho Man Randy Savage on previously, and as many celebrities like Grace Jones and NASCAR driver Kyle Petty had done in the past, Claude Mann and Paul Gilmartin joined the NWO in this segment. But they do so by stabbing WCW in the back. Mean Gene Okerlund asks these folks to introduce their dishes. And they do so by saying, well, here's our first one, Macho Nachos, and here's our second one, Macho Mayo, and here's our third one, Macho Gazpacho. A very clear theme emerging, right? Like, these folks
they're gay for Macho Man.
they're in Macho Man Randy Savage's they're in the pocket of his Slim Jim Snap Into It jacket. And Mean Gene Okerlund is incensed. Like, this is as bad. Like, for one, this is happening kind of like on or near the anniversary of the NWO being formed a year ago. And it gets turned into the NWO's birthday party very quickly. They have like a NWO cake, but like Mean Gene Okerlund is as mad at Chef Claude Mann and comedian Paul Gilmartin. I like how comedian is part of his name for me. He's as mad at Chef Claude Mann and comedian Paul Gilmartin as Tony Schiavone was at Hulk Hogan when he dropped the leg on Randy Savage a year ago. Like, you could tell Gene Okerlund wants to tell these dudes to go to hell. Especially once they stab the WCW Cream Puffs flag in the Cream Puffs. Like, this is the sort of thing that I think most people would think of as being I cannot imagine that there wasn't like a WrestleCrap.com article about how terrible this was, but I gotta tell you, this is one of those things where when you watch it, like, this is the magic of pro wrestling to me, is insane cross promotional shit where like sure, in the middle of the Clash of the Champions, we're going to build a kitchen and we're going to have these dudes cooking stuff. Only they very clearly not cooked any of this. This is all just shit from catering. And then they're going to turn heel. And Macho Man comes out and he does his whole thing. And he's like, you guys are my friends to the end. You passed the initiation. You're in the NWO, brothers. And then he leaves, which brings out DDP. And DDP beats the shit out of comedian Paul Gilmartin and upends the whole thing. He throws over all the little racks with all the little chef stuff. He destroys the stove. He throws the NWO sheet cake at comedian Paul Gilmartin's face after hitting him with the diamond cutter. And this is one of those things where I don't know about you, Orchid, but like these small inconsequential moments in wrestling history tend to stand out to me more than like the big ones, I guess. Like, you know, you can take your Shawn Michaels crying tearfully and saying, I'm sorry, I love you, before kicking a winded old man in the face and retiring him. You can take that and stuff it in the fucking garbage disposal. The best shit about WWE in the year 2006 or 4 or 8 or fucking 26 is when Steve-O no-sold Umaga's beatdown and got beat down even more because of it. Like, that's what I care about when it comes to the great sport of pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never get me to forget Jeff Hardy versus Jeff Jarrett, August 16, 2023, the first ever Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match. I do not know who the lineal Texas Chainsaw champion is, but
I think it's still Jeff.
I'm going to do.
Or it's like Brian Danielson.
I don't know. I'm going to find out when my wife goes to bed. So I hope somebody has VPR.
This is,
I'll be doing the work. I will be doing the work.
So my friend, and legend of the wrestling game, Robert Newsom, who is the editor and main writer of The Atomic Elbow, which is one of the great publications in the history of wrestling. He is much like me, kind of obsessed with these moments in time. And in issue 9 of The Atomic Elbow, which came out, Jesus, before I was a woman, probably, you know, like just to put that in context, I actually got in contact with comedian Paul Gilmartin to talk to him about his experience on the Clash of the Champions, and it went about as well as you would think. This whole segment, I'm reading it right now, trying to come up with here we go. Okay, so he is talking to I'm just going to read the bit here, where Robert asks, how were you approached to do the live action segment at Clash of the Champions 35? And comedian Paul Gilmartin says, the bits we did with Randy Savage on Dinner and a Movie went over really well, so the promotions people at Turner asked if I'd like to go to WCW and do cross-promotion. I said if I liked the premise, I'd be down for it, which is hilarious to think about. You know, here's Randy Savage, and comedian Paul Gilmartin is like, I gotta think about whether or not this is beneath me, which says a lot about the true place of professional wrestling, even at its like zenith in 97, right? I pitched the idea of me talking shit to one of the wrestlers, and then just as I'm about to get my ass beat, Randy would save me. Of course, it didn't go down that way. When we got to Nashville, Eric Bischoff said it was the first he had heard of the idea, and his show was not going to have any comedy in it. He was being a humorless asshole, in my opinion. Tense silence. Clocks. I said, well, I didn't fly out here to stand around, and Randy piped in, you could take the diamond cutter. Your phone would be ringing off the hook. And I said, what's the diamond cutter? They brought in Diamond Dallas Page, and he said, I'll put you in a headlock and we fall to the ground. If you put your face where your feet were, you'll be okay. If you fight me, you'll get hurt. We tried it a few times on the canvas, and it hurt each time, but it wasn't horrible. Mind you, the canvas has some give. Where we wound up doing it was on a plywood floor in a make-wood kitchen. No give. DDP said, your adrenaline is going to be pumping. Even if you do get hurt, you won't feel it till later. He was right. My arm was bleeding and I couldn't use a pen for a week. To which Robert says, "You looked super nervous before you took that diamond cutter," to which comedian Paul Gilmartin says, "Yeah, I was nervous. The last thing he said before we went out was, if you get cute and fuck around, I'm going to get real on your ass."
That's fucking
comedian Paul Gilmartin says that that the true highlight for him, he loved working with Randy, and that he was a big fan of the Chicago Bears growing up. So working with Steve Mongo, or hanging out with Steve McMichael, was a lot of fun for him, and that Mongo told him that he took the diamond cutter better than some of the wrestlers, and that made the pain worthwhile, until he got home and he received an email. He said, let's see here. Robert asks, "Why did you get the diamond cutter and not Chef Claude Mann?" And comedian Paul Gilmartin says, "I think because Chef Claude Mann is smarter than I am. He was there for support. Right before I went out on stage, he said, 'Enjoy your legs while you have use of them,'" which is a fucked up thing to say to your partner. Then a stagehand casually said, "Oh, we forgot to mention when the crowd gets riled up, they like to throw coins and batteries," which was not true. The first thing I heard after they introduced me was a guy in the crowd yelling, "You're dead, cookin' boy." The whole reason this thing was set up was to try to get more male viewers for dinner and a movie. But the first email I read when I got home said, "Saw you take the diamond cutter. You are a faggot." This is so much more interesting to me than like, hey, Roman Reigns, like what were you saying to Seth after the match? Like what tender moment were y'all sharing after your fucking 14-year never-ending story concluded this time around until the next time we need it again? Like, I want to hear more like comedian Paul Gilmartin stories and less insight with Chris Van Villais. We need to bleep out the insight with Chris Van Villais, because I don't want that showing up under the mentioned in this episode part of Apple Podcast. You don't have to bleep it out for real, but like, if he gets any hits as a consequence of that, I'm going to be sad, because I think that what he has done to talking about wrestling is a shanda, truly. But yeah, this segment, Chef's Kiss. I don't know if you heard me do the Chef's Kiss, the Chef Claude Mann's kiss. And yeah, like, to me, like, this and Savage, and to bring it even more like full circle to what we're talking about for the rest of this episode, like DDP's kind of like B and C show matches against the likes of Roadblock, or like Perry Saturn, or anyone on Saturday Night Worldwide Pro, the Prime, all those great shows. They kind of round out like who DDP was to me before he became a legitimate celebrity, which was this guy who could and would do anything in the context of a wrestling show and make it seem legitimate and important, despite how inherently ridiculous it was.
Yeah, I mean, it feels incredibly fair. Trying to figure out a way to bring about the ridiculousness into what would be the next major feud we have to cover, and that's a little bit difficult to do since it mentions he who shall not be named by WWE. Did you happen to get a chance to watch the triple threat with Raven and Chris Benoit from Uncensored in 1998, or do you remember enough about that match to get into detail about it?
I did not get a chance to watch this match, but okay. I will say that a version of it was the semi-main event of the first wrestling show I ever went to, where it was Raven, DDP, and Chris Benoit at the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit, Michigan, in March of 1998. And I think that it's one of those moments that is like indelibly etched in my mind. The sound of it when Raven hit Chris Benoit as hard as he could in the head with an artist's easel, which I do not know where they got that from. It might have been the whiteboard that they had the matches written down on, for all I know. Like, I was in the stands and there was no Titantron or anything like that. Like, they didn't turn on the video camera for like a non-televised show. So there was like nothing playing on like the big Jumbotron. It was just my eyes, and my eyes saw big ass easel, fucking Bobby from Twin Peaks swinging for the fences with it, because that's what Raven is based on, I think, more than Kurt Cobain. Like, Kurt Cobain did not actually dress like Raven, but Bobby from Twin Peaks did, and like this big old like thunk that you could hear throughout the arena. Like, it was devastating and disgusting, and if we knew what the consequences for that would have been, maybe they wouldn't have done it throughout the house show loop. I'm sure they probably did that every night. But yeah, like I have a lot of fond memories of this period for DDP. You would think that after the Savage feud that Page would have immediately ascended to the main event. But instead he ends up feuding with Kurt Hennig for the WCW United States Championship. And Kurt is kind of at the end of his having anything like the juice that he used to. He will very soon be in WCW basically just to cash a paycheck. But like Page is at a point in his career where he is entrusted and made enough that he can introduce old characters like Kurt into the fold, and also legitimize new wrestlers like Raven, who debuts in late '97. Page and Benoit have extremely good chemistry. There's a very good Thunder match between the two of them for the WCW Championship, like early on in Thunder's run. It might have been on the first episode. It could have been the main event. They also have an incredible singles match. But Raven adds this like distinct like wild card element to it. Because for one, he's like an actual heel. Page and Benoit's thing was like, here's like this working class wrestler, the people's champion. I think he had started talking about himself as at that point before The Rock did, or maybe around the same time, but The Rock was doing it as a heel. DDP was doing it as a babyface. And like Benoit was this extremely technically proficient guy who had been one of the greatest wrestlers ever already. Like, people kind of already had that picture of him, though I think that his case for that gets rounded out by his later WWE stuff a little bit more than his WCW stuff, just because of the way WCW worked. But he was a guy that people were extremely excited about and loved. And Benoit would have been like probably a top 5 wrestler for me in 97, 98. Just incredibly engaging stuff. Like he managed to find a way to make his technical style fit in like kind of like a more like bruising, like his feud against Kevin Sullivan is very uncomfortable to think about now for, you know, obvious reasons, like with everything that happens between him and Nancy, who was Kevin Sullivan's wife and then was Chris Benoit's wife and then was ultimately a victim of Chris Benoit at the end of her life and her son's life. But that feud has like it really elevates Benoit as a wrestler. Like, he's a more 3-dimensional wrestler after that. And I think that the Page feud and adding Raven to it does that much more. Like it makes a very compelling case for Benoit as somebody who also should be wrestling for the world title. And he, like Page, doesn't really get a proper shot at it until 99. But those matches are a lot of fun. And I think that, you know, where you really get into the weeds with it is once Raven gets involved. That triangle match, because WCW, despite running triple threat matches way before ECW did, I think, because they were doing triangle matches in like 93. And like they ran, I think, one of the best ever triple threat matches ever. It was like Vader, Sting, and Big Boss Man as Big Bubba.
That sounds great.
And that's in like 95. And like, I don't know, like ECW gets really famous for the triple threat match. And then WWF ruins it. Like it goes from being a main event attraction to being like, how do we get Road Dogg and Al Snow and Hardcore Holly on the show? Like just like everything in WWE, like it goes from like like one of the most famous WrestleMania matches of all time is a ladder match, and now it's like how do we get like the 17th most important how do we get JD McDonough on the card? I found out who that was a couple weeks ago and still
no idea
out of the lineup. But I'm told that he did a ladder spot that was exactly like some other ladder spot, and that I should know better as a wrestling fan. But the secret about me is that I'm not a wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling critic. God damn it. I'm a wrestling savant. So I don't know who JD McDonough is, but I do know that DDP versus Chris Benoit versus Raven is an incredible triple threat match, and it's so much fun. But I don't know how much time I want to spend talking about Chris Benoit. I feel like I've talked a lot about him already.
You already have. Yeah, it was a very long answer to no. I didn't get a chance to rewatch the match. But I love you dearly.
This is why this is part 2.
Yeah, exactly. And why I brought notes. So I don't do the same thing.
But I mean, it is important. Like, it's an important match to me. It is. Yeah. You know, like.
No. Yeah. And I definitely got a couple of things I kind of want to say about it that will either segue into the Raven match at Spring Stampede if we want to spend any time talking about that, or will segment into the work that he did with Jay Leno, which we have to. We got to say a little bit about it. I have so much to
but
say
I love how
that.
the options here are. We can talk about Diamond Dallas Page's second most important feud if we want to. Or
wait, what would his second most important feud be here from this perspective?
Well, it's Raven. It's the Raven thing. Like,
okay,
it's his second.
I feel like there's
one.
I feel like there's a case to be made against Hogan with the celebrity matches, but let's not get into that.
No.
Since we'll only be talking about one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. From my perspective, there's just two things I just want to say about the three-way that are really interesting, or from my perspective, is that this is one of the first matches, at least through the ones that we've seen so far, where a trope of threat that comes up throughout Page's career finds its way into a title match, which is that in a multi-person match, he becomes taken out of it in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
It is such a smart way to sort of allow to very good workers. I'm not saying DDP is not one. And I am saying with my chest that Raven is a severely underrated worker. And that might be my ECW-ness coming out a little bit too much. But we'll save that for the Raven episode, or the Scotty Flamingo episode. But I just think that it's really interesting to just see in this match, just this like sort of like take him out, get him out of the match, not necessarily because he isn't a great worker, but because it is a great way to generate sympathy for someone who has an extremely, extremely strong connection as a babyface with the crowd at this particular point.
Yeah.
NWO has like, it doesn't have the same oomph that it had a year prior to this, but Page is absolutely somebody who they've like transferred a lot of their babyface heat to. And that becomes really clear. There's a moment during it where, Page gets back into the ring to administer a sleeper hold onto Benoit, who has a sleeper hold on Raven. I might have those characters confused. And that transitions into to Page hitting a triple German,
right,
on both of them.
The real
and
Shikara special.
Exactly.
The triple sleeper.
Exactly. Yes. But the fucking bump that the pop that you hear from the crowd during that triple German is fucking like atomic. And it's one of those things that just sets up what is one of the biggest themes of DDP's career as it pertains to the remaining of his time in WCW. This is just a fucking guy that the people want to believe in. They do not want to cheer against him. They want to see him come back. They want to see him defy the odds. He just unfortunately lost that match to Macho Man, and this is somebody that they're absolutely getting behind in the same way that folks in Jim Crockett got behind Dusty, in the same way AEW fans get behind Hangman. He is becoming the forgotten son of the company, and it is just incredible just to kind of see how like the seeds are being sowed in this match. And yeah, if you wanted to go into the match of Spring Stampede, I'm beyond happy to talk about that because I've got some things to say about that. But to give you a little bit of a leadway, one of the things that it shocked me that we haven't talked about yet, that I know I'm going to bring up a few more times, is that in the Spring Stampede match, it's one of the first instances where like it's really abundantly clear to me that one of the things I appreciate the most about Page is that he is. I don't know if this has anything to do with the fact that he started training late in his career, or if he was just like a really fucking tough guy from bouncing, but he is somebody who, it's rare in American wrestling at this time and age, at this particular point in time, that the wrestlers don't look like wrestlers, or the wrestlers' matches don't look like wrestling matches, but they look like fucking fights.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely something that comes out like crazy in this match.
Yeah, this looks like a fight. Like, it's unfortunate that there's no like Chuck E. Cheese style restaurant that's like Western themed, because that's what the Spring Stampede set looks like. This like barn with like the big horns and the fucking stagecoach. Made famous in Stagecoach. Again, when Emmett and I were watching this, he thought it was really funny that Tony Schiavone or someone called it the Wells Fargo wagon, and I did not sit down to explain like, no, that was one of the functions of Wells Fargo, was to have a wagon. Like, that's how they got money from place to place, and they were like the big bank out west. So it makes sense that you would call it that. But I love, like, to this point, WCW, one of the great things about it is their set design. It's a lost art.
God, yeah.
People often praise like WWF era, like the WrestleMania stage is so cool, or like, oh man, do you remember like when they had like the swinging hooks at Backlash? Like, that was so cool. But like WCW was doing shit like, all right guys, it's fucking Halloween, and we got us Graveyard, and there's Elvis's tombstone, like, sort of thing. And here they've got like the barn, and the hay bales and the stagecoach, but like, you would never in a million years think to yourself, someone's gonna do a move off of this here stagecoach. But these two motherfuckers are just crazy enough to do it.
Does he do a fucking move off that stagecoach?
It's so good. It's so good. And like, to your point, like, it's like, it's goofy but rugged in the same, like, it's very pro wrestling, but it's also very much like, this fight has gone to the stagecoach. These men would like to end each other.
No, it's just, it totally looks like just somebody just acting on instinct, and that instinct is, I have to kill this spoiled little fucker.
Yeah.
It's so good. He's like an inch away from dying, too.
I never thought about it in terms of his having been a former bouncer, but like, one of the things that I most love about DDP is his punches.
Totally.
And like, they're not the sort of punch that you would throw in a real fight. Like, they're far too loopy for it, but like, there's like a real like energy to them that is like, he's definitely thrown and taken a few in his life and knows what a good punch looks like. And they're like, I don't know, he's such a dynamic, I don't want to call him a striker because he has one, and that's a punch, but like, he's throwing them right and left. He's a disciple of Dusty Rhodes too. So he knows how like a big showy punch is supposed to work and what it can mean to like his character. And he's great at it. He's so good at it. And he does like, I'm doing the thing where I have it on in the background. He's so like, I think that like another underrated thing about Page is how giving he is as a bumper.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, he will throw his ass around if it means like getting over the threat that someone poses to him. There's this spot here where Raven has thrown DDP out of the ring and gets back into it, and Page is trying to get back into it. DDP climbs up on the apron, and Raven kind of like hip checks him, which causes Page's lower body to fly outwards from the ring apron, and Page takes the ring apron like basically with his head and shoulder. And it's such like a weird, like, you never see wrestlers do that, probably because it hurts like a son of a bitch. And it's like not natural to how you've been trained, but it is natural to how that would work in real life. Like, if you attack someone's legs and they're on a platform and their legs fly out, like, the fulcrum of that momentum is going to smash their fucking face into whatever they were standing on. Or, as DDP said to comedian Paul Gilmartin, if your face ends up where your feet were, you'll be fine, which is what happens. It's so fun to watch these two do what they're doing. Like, they make a big point of this in the feud proper, where like Raven says that they're both disciples of the snake or whatever, which is extremely nice of him to do, because like really when you do that in wrestling, that means that like Jake the Snake should be coming in for some part of this. But in 1998, Jake the Snake Roberts was really struggling and had already burned his bridge in WCW 5 years prior. There was no way that was happening. But to give Jake a shout out for his role in really transforming both men's careers, and making this feud seem that much more personal and closely invested than it already would have been, just for, you know, costing Paige the United States Championship or something like that. I think is like one of the cooler things that like Raven does in '98. The coolest thing, of course, being losing to Goldberg for the title in Goldberg's 75th match, covered in episode 1 of the Patron Saints of Six Sons of Bitches. But yeah, this match is really good. I think I have long said that the thing that I like about DDP Raven is that it's what Raven versus Tommy Dreamer would be if two good wrestlers were involved. And we haven't really actually talked about your thoughts about Tommy Dreamer, and I hope to God we will someday, but maybe not next week. I don't want him to actually hit on the wheel. I don't know if I'm ready for that. But like I think that like the biggest criticism against this feud that one could have is how closely it mirrors Raven Dreamer, but I also think that is its strength, because a lot of the weak points of that feud, even beyond Dreamer, are improved by budget, which is not common for wrestling. Raven's Flock in WCW is so much better than Raven's Nest. Like, I don't have to think.
Really? That big Stevie Richards fan?
I love Stevie Richards. Stevie Richards notably is in WCW for part of this feud. Then he gets fired because Raven kind of dicked him out. But you know who I don't love? Lupus. I don't want to see Lupus ever. You know who I don't want to see? Most of the Dudleys, big dick aside. Spike, I don't think it debuted yet in 95 or whatever. Like, you know who I definitely don't want to see? Fucking goddamn Tommy Dreamer. I'll say it again. I don't want to see Tommy Dreamer. Get his ass out of here. You're fucking terrible, Tommy. You suck. The only reason why, like, he got over, Tommy Dreamer is almost always the worst wrestler in the ring, no matter what. He's almost certainly the worst promo on the mic, no matter how many people are in the ring talking at one time.
You don't have to make this a Tommy Dreamer episode.
It's not a Tommy Dreamer episode. It's a Diamond Dallas Page episode. DDP is actually like the cool working class, I would fucking die for this place guy that Tommy Dreamer wishes he would be. DDP didn't go around fucking yelling EC dub until he got a job at WWE and then tried to make the WWE chant happen. Like, DDP is for real about this shit, at least in my brain and my heart. And I think that the dynamic just works better because the rough edges, which are usually more interesting to me, like 9 times out of 10 in wrestling, are actually things that I don't like very much in practice. So like those getting sanded away and replaced with somebody whose work I truly admire and appreciate says a lot. And unlike in ECW, where like Raven never really truly elevated Dreamer to like actually being like a main event dude, the focal point of this feud is to get Raven over to the point where he can hold the US title until Goldberg can take it from him, and that goal is achieved. It is achieved splendidly, spectacularly even. Like it's just like another instance where like not only is Page capable of being made by a great wrestler, he is capable of making a great wrestler himself. And I think that is really important to consider when you think about somebody's case for being one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, if not the greatest, which of course Diamond Dallas Page is.
Yes. Yeah, completely. Okay. So we got a limited amount of time to cover potentially a lot of more stuff. Where do we go from here from your perspective?
We got to go to other wrestlers that DDP carried. Not Karl Malone. I don't want to talk about Karl Malone. Karl Malone was very intentionally left off the syllabus. I think that match is not in the WWE vault for reasons. Like things came out about the mailman later in life that make that match very unsavory. Though I think that now people mostly talk about how fucked up Dennis Rodman was, like at Bash at the Beach '98. The match that we need to talk about, which crazily is not even the most infamous DDP celebrity thing on the docket.
I know
it's which is insane to think about. We really need to talk about Road Wild 1998.
Please, for the love of everything holy, I would love to.
We need to talk about Diamond Dallas Page and Jay Leno, accompanied by Kevin Eubanks, versus Eric Bischoff and Hollywood Hulk Hogan, accompanied by the Disciple, and I think Miss Elizabeth. Yeah, Miss Elizabeth is there. She doesn't do anything. She's wearing chaps. Good look.
Yes.
This is also a Miss Elizabeth fashion podcast. DDP and Leno versus Hogan and Bischoff. Really DDP versus Hogan, and how Hogan managed to successfully duck like the necessity maybe of dropping the title to DDP temporarily by instead saddling him with all these celebrity feuds.
Yeah.
Okay, this match caused me to stop watching wrestling for a couple of months.
Really?
I hated and hate to this day Jay Leno. I hated him when I was a kid. I did not think he was funny. I did not understand what old people saw in him, besides like another gray-haired schlub. And I was on Team Conan. Like, I was a big Conan shooter, even though I shouldn't have been awake that late. Like, my sister and I watched Conan all the time, really, which is nuts. It probably explains a lot about my relationship to sleep these days. I was a big mark for Conan, and instead of thinking about NWO Nightcap, which is really the impetus for my not watching wrestling until Mick Foley won the world title on Raw on January 4th, 1999. So it was a really brief break. It was Eric Bischoff's NWO Nightcap that killed WCW for me.
See, now that I can follow. I think for me,
this was
it
the
didn't
culmination of that.
Yeah, I think for me, it didn't kill wrestling for me, because I was lucky enough to be able to watch ECW Hardcore TV. I do remember this was like around the time I was like super getting into it. Probably like a few months prior. Like, I was just like all about ECW at this particular point. Probably had just. Actually, I think this month would have been when I went to my first wrestling show, which would have been a ECW house show at the Fun Bubble in Staten Island, New York.
Fun Bubble.
It was a lot of fun. I'm telling you, I had a lot of fun there playing sports, and the teen foam parties. That was a really fun summer.
Foam party.
Yeah, you like let all the soapy foam out, and you grind to. I'm not going to talk about that. All right. Anyway, but
My
I think
eyes
we
just
can probably.
unfocused. I don't like everything that you said from Fun Bubble forward just sounds made up.
I did unfortunately live a very cursed childhood. That's what happens.
Things were different on Staten Island.
They were. The Jersey Shore was not fabricated. All those that was what life was like. Shouts to Sammy Sweetheart, they did you wrong. Anyway, back to wrestling. I think we can probably segue out of. I have two major points from this. The first is that I was incredibly alarmed the amount of children that were at the Sturgis, whatever the fuck it is. But hearing the amount of children that were just chanting for DDP was scary. The other thing that is relatively meaningful, unfortunately, for the rest of Diamond Dallas Page's career, is that it is super interesting to me that anytime that they wanted to do some celebrity involvement, when they needed to get somebody besides Hogan involved, it was always Page.
Yeah. Well, they needed to.
Yeah.
It couldn't be Savage because Savage was a heel. But like Savage was the guy in this role before 97. Like the first Dennis Rodman match, the one that's good, like had Savage on the outside basically like running the whole match the whole time.
Right.
But once it became clear that DDP was capable of doing this sort of thing, that made it so that Savage didn't have to be there, which opened the door for, Brother Brudai to collect his paycheck out on the out ringside, because DDP could just as easily structure these matches in a way that made the celebrities look decent enough. It did not work out in the Rodman match because Rodman was super fucked up. I think to the point that they asked another basketball player who was just in attendance whether or not he'd be able to suit up and take his place, which would have been hilarious. But I think that Paige does a really good job here. Like, I won't lie to you, Orchid.
Oh, no.
Like, this match is so much better than it has any right to be.
It does. It's so good. I've watched it 3 times this year. I can't get enough of it.
You've watched it 3 times?
I can't get enough of it. I was so happy when we landed on DDP because I was like, I gotta watch the Leto match again. I mean, like, because there are just so many things that are just interesting about it. To your point about like being Team Conan, that's great. The same way that I feel about people running for presidency, I think something has to be severely wrong with you to want to host a late night show.
And you know who's willing to admit that? Conan O'Brien.
Well, yeah, which I'm going to avoid. I get the appeal of Conan. Whatever. Anyway, but there is something. It is incredible to me that, like, in this specific setting, I guess because Eric Bischoff is involved, this kind of plays into it a little bit, but like, Hogan is not getting cheered in front of a bunch of bikers.
I know.
That's fucking crazy to me.
I know.
I'm rooting for Jay Leno.
They love this blueberry shaped man.
It's incredible. He comes out with his little coffee cup, just drinking it. Like, who drinks coffee on the way to a wrestling match? What the fuck are you doing, girl? But no, what just kills me about it is that, like, this is one of those instances that, like, I don't know if you've mentioned, I think, on the first episode of the show that, like, wrestling is fundamental. No, it wasn't on the show. It was on VPR.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that, like, wrestling is for children, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it is 100% for children. And this is a sort of setting that really just sort of, like, plays into, like, the beauty of, like, the babyface heel dynamic. And that, like, you got a bunch of people. When you pan the crowd, you see some of the most horrifying sunburns you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yes.
But you're looking at a crowd of people who are just incredibly drunk, just out of their mind. And Paige and Hogan, but largely Paige, will this crowd of people who are viewing this thing for free into playing their roles. You're rooting for the baby faces. You're rooting against the heels. And that somehow convinces, was it like 20,000 bikers, that Jay Leno was cool?
Yeah.
And deserves to be cheered for. It's a monument in terms of, like, what happens in a wrestling.
No, for sure. And like, it's the exact opposite of what happens. Like, it's a shitty miracle, I'll say. Like, that
yes, the match sucks. I'm not going to say it's good.
But when you compare this to, like, Hulk Hogan's other 1998 magnum opus, like the Ultimate Warrior match at Halloween Havoc 98, which, again, Diamond Dallas Page, like, it's not on the syllabus because we talked about it during the Goldberg episode, but right. DDP and Goldberg are so effective in their match that not only do the fans not walk out on Hogan Warrior, which absolutely is a thing that would have happened if it were the main event. You'd be seeing people leaving in droves because that match sucked out loud before it went to hell. But, like, Hogan was so, like, out of his head, like, out of touch with what made him work, like, as a wrestler, face or heel. Like, you know, his genius is unfortunately undeniable, Hogan's. But in 98, like, that was, like, his first of many, not first of many, fifth of, like, 55 midlife crises for Hulk Hogan. And he was really feeling it, but, like, here, like, Paige is so effective that it works. Like, he's a great sounding board for Hogan's inability to accept that at the end of the day, like, celebrity though he may be, he is still a pro wrestler. Because, like, that's the thing about this match, is that Hogan wants desperately to be seen as more than that when he is not. You are what you are. Like, Jay Leno was also one of the most popular people in the world in 1998. He was still a fucking talk show host. Like, he's not, you know, George Clooney or whatever. Though 1998, I think that's like the year after Batman and Robin came out, so that might not be the best comparison either. I don't know like what level of fame. Like he's not Tom Hanks, you know, like he can't do anything. He can't like whatever. It's just not like a comparable level of fame that he's shooting for.
Right.
The Warrior match was Hogan trying to get his win from 1992 back and finding out very quickly that no one gave a shit, because why would they? Like, who the fuck is the Ultimate Warrior in 1998? But like this match, like the thing is, you know that it's all Page. Like it's all Page. Like Hogan is doing his Hogan bits. Eric Bischoff is Eric Bischoff is the worst wrestler in this match. Like there's dude, there is a guy in this match who by the end of it looks like he's about to heave ho and doesn't. Like Jay Leno manages not to yak at the end of this match, and Eric Bischoff looks worse than Jay Leno for most of it. Like I would sooner take 100,000 Eric Bischoff kicks to the dome than one of Jay Leno's crazy ass punches. Like one of his weird grandma rabbit punches. Like those look like they hurt in a way, kind of. But I love that, like, you can tell that Page, like, taught Leno some bits, like, the full arm dragon twist that Leno does like a million times is like definitely like DDP like looking at this man and going,
what am I gonna do?
What am I gonna do? It's gonna be this, and it fucking works. It fucking works. It shouldn't work, and like I know that like people who cover wrestling and people who talk about wrestling, they want to act like this was like some big shameful fucking moment in the history of wrestling, but you know, buy rates and media attention and the revving of 10,000 motorcycles can't be fucking wrong. Right. Shitty though this match may be, it fucking worked, and that's wrestling. Like the ability to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad, to paraphrase Stone Cold Steve Austin, is tantamount to what it takes to being a major player in this great sport. And all of that leads me to ask you the question, Orchid. Is Jay Leno the greatest wrestler of all time?
Yeah. I mean, fuck me. I mean, I leave that match surprised every time how much I want him to win. Granted, it doesn't help that he's against Bishop.
How many high fives do you think Leno got in the back for not throwing up?
Ah, man. That particular locker room, I don't. Maybe one from Dean Malenko.
He was getting, he was getting drunk with the boys. He was getting drunk with the boys.
It could have, maybe. I have such a hard time imagining Jay Leno in any context besides this wrestling match.
Meanwhile, I'm like, this is the great bastard of late night television. He's the Hulk Hogan of this shit. I fucking hate him. I want him to die. I can imagine him in his garage alone with all of his cars, like fucking Citizen Kane, the Citizen Kane of shit. Fucking, he sucks. Yeah. But he has more good wrestling matches than Danhausen.
Yeah, no, that's well, yeah.
One is a number.
Speaking of more wrestlers who have better matches than Danhausen, probably the next place to go from here would be to talk about the spring of 1999, particularly April, which would have been. There's a lot to talk about, and I will admit that two of these matches do blend together in my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know more than anything else, you're probably going to want to talk about what's probably the best match of his career against Sting. Right.
The Sting match is great. Again, I think that the thing about a lot of these Sting matches in late era WCW is that, like, I almost feel like saving them for the eventual Sting episode.
Yeah,
there's
that's
a lot
fair.
of Sting slander out there. And I said this about Goldberg too, because there's a really great Sting Goldberg Nitro match where like some people say that, you know, Sting came back from not wrestling for a year and was past it and wasn't good anymore or whatever. And I think that's horseshit. Sting was great. I think that the thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the spring of 99, really the rest of DDP's career, and this is kind of the unfortunate side effect of his having reached a certain level of fame and done the deal with Jay Leno and Karl Malone and Chef Claude Mann and comedian Paul Gilmartin and later David Arquette, is that in becoming a household name, at least amongst wrestling fans, that somehow enabled World Championship Wrestling to forget what made him so special, which was that he was a man of the people. And this match, the 4-way for the WCW World Title, the wheels are off at this point in WCW. Like somehow Ric Flair is a heel, despite there being like an angle where like Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash are conspiring to like have a prostitute who later becomes Tori Wilson sleep with Flair's son, who is like in his early 20s or like might be 19 at that point. Like just
red as a tomato.
The wheels, to quote Taz, sure. But like the wheels are fully off WCW at this point, and like Page, if he was going to win the title, should have won it in 98. But it's April 1999, and I think that this is the point. Not really much for reading the dirt sheets. But if I had to guess, like after you've gone through a string where you have tagged with Jay Leno and Karl Malone, and gotten hit super hard in the head with a stop sign in front of the Foo Fighters, and are also friends with Eric Bischoff or whatever, like people who write about and read the writing about wrestling might come to a conclusion that you have not earned what has been given to you, despite that not being the case for Page. And I think a lot of people would take the shit that they said about him back these days. But like there was kind of a growing perception of DDP as somebody who did not belong in the main event, truly, with the likes of Ric Flair, Hollywood Hogan, Sting, Macho Man Randy Savage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like somebody who was there by grace of their being friends with the boss and not by the grace of their talent. Which meant that in April 1999, when he won the title, it was like the 5th time that year that they had tried to correct course from the finger poke of doom. And that this was arguably the least satisfying conclusion that they could have come up with. And it leads to DDP turning heel for a while, like when he joins with Kanyon and Bam Bam Bigelow to form the Jersey Triad. They have a lot of great tag team matches. They're excellent. We're not going to talk about them here because some things do have to be cut for the sake of not making an episode about 2 years of wrestling, like a friggin' 4-episode affair. But there's like a sourness to this for me. Like I like this match, and you're right, I do love the DDP Sting match. It's one of the rare Nitro World Title matches that is actually like wrestled like a fucking world title match and not like the story will continue Wednesday on Thunder sort of shit. But like it should have happened earlier. And it should have happened when there was still something to the notion of being the world champion. It's so unfortunate to me that like two guys who like will forever be known as WCW champions, like definitionally because of when they won them. But like, DDP was very famous for saying that he was the three-time WCW heavyweight champion, and Booker T did the same thing with five-time. That might have been 6. I don't know. But like all of those reigns kind of sucked because they happened, when Eric Bischoff was pining for barbecue grills that hadn't been invented yet in Cody, Wyoming. Or while like Vince Russo had the book because I don't know, fucking Ted Turner got a concussion while harvesting buffalo for Ted's Montana Grill. You can't, like, it's impossible to know how and why things got as bad as they did, as quickly as they did, except to say that, like, I derive no joy from DDP's actual title reigns, and that makes me sad as somebody who loves Paige as much as I do. Like, you watch this match, and like you watch the entrances, and you see all of the accoutrement that was initially purchased and brought in for Spring Stampede in 1998, and the lighting isn't as vibrant. It's all pushed to the back. Like, it just looks like it's there, and like that's kind of like how the rest of Page's run in WCW feels, is that like he's present and that's it, because like from here on out he's a name that you can just slot into whatever role you have going on at the moment, expect that he'll make the best of it, be pleasantly surprised when it goes better than it should have, and then fuck, he's in there celebrating with David Arquette, who technically beat him for the title somehow.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's like, it's hard to like feel as if his journey from 91 to 98 resolves itself in a way that isn't sad, because he is, to me, like the quintessential WCW wrestler, and the story of WCW is a tragedy.
That's entirely fair. And I think, taking that into account, why don't we just hop right to what you selected from his WWF run to discuss his feud with Christian. I mean, if the point of this podcast is to make the greatest wrestler of all time case, we don't need to lament lost years, right? Like, there's no need to do that. And the less time we spent talking about Eric Bischoff, who, every time I see him in the wrestling ring, I question every life decision that led me to making this podcast with you in the first place. The less time we spent talking about
that's how I feel about Jeff Jarrett. Like, that's how seeing Jeff Jarrett in most contexts makes me feel, especially for watching the syllabus of this podcast. You can say what you want about Eric Bischoff, and you should, because Bischoff is involved in that Jarrett and Arquette match, not least of which in the sense that he booked it.
I know who I'm adding to the wheel tonight,
but like,
if he's not on there already,
I don't think Jeff Jarrett's on there. It's Jeff Jarrett versus DDP from TNA, Final Destination, or not that Final Destination. Jesus, I wish, because that means that everyone in the arena would have died. From Destination X, 2005, like, that match made me hate wrestling in a way that I didn't think was possible after living through the Triple H reign of terror. But again, for the most part, it's just one of those things where, like, here's a company that had DDP and didn't understand what made him special. That's also true of WWE, but we don't need to talk about the Alliance feud, because what Page does in what was at one point in time thought to be like the final act of his career, was ostensibly do a better job of elevating Christian as a singles wrestler than his former tag team partner and weirdly current tag team partner Edge did when the team of Edge and Christian initially ended. Like, Page and Christian are so well matched for each other at that point in both of their careers that it's kind of insane. Like, Diamond Dallas Page is a guy who, like, early in his career, he wasn't a wrestler, but he wanted so badly to be in wrestling that he became a manager. And at one point in time, he tried out for the World Wrestling Federation as a commentator and didn't get the job. But something that he did have that nobody else in the WWF had was a pink Cadillac, which made him perfect for the role of the driver of Elvis-inspired tag team Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine's wrestling entrance at WrestleMania 6, where they came down to the ring in a pink Cadillac. And again, to kind of go back to like the notion of DDP as like somebody who was told he was never going to make it, if you had told like Vince McMahon, hey, remember the like shore rat who drove a pink Cadillac down to the ring at WrestleMania 6? Someday he's going to be wrestling on a WrestleMania Vince would have been like,
I tell you,
yeah, no, he wouldn't have believed it because he was probably doing steroids with the Ultimate Warrior in the back, like, as one does. Nothing wrong with that. But like, there's no way that he would have ever figured that. And like, DDP winds up making it to a point where his WWF run is terrible. Not his fault. Like the Alliance stuff was bad. Like he was basically booked as a whipping boy for WCW's sins, which were existing and at one point defeating WWE in the ratings war for 83 weeks or whatever, which Page was a major part of. So for him to rebound from one of the worst aspects of the WCW versus WWF invasion feud and get a featured match on WrestleMania for a title and win, I think is like one more kind of feather in Page's cap. And also, it was the feud that led Christian from being a guy who did like funny backstage skits about throwing temper tantrums because he always lost, to figuring out how to more completely integrate those sort of character aspects into his in-ring work. Sounds crazy considering that, like, I think the bulk of their matches all ran like 6 or 7 minutes, but like that's an eternity in 2002 WWE time. And I think that Page like is a huge part of that for Christian, because Page was himself exceptional at like integrating seemingly incongruous and not all that exciting cheap heel heat stuff into his in-ring work when he was a heel, particularly in like 94, 95. So it's like a nice way of like closing things out like on a major stage. I think like this Christian feud for the European title. Would I say that any of it stands up to like, any of his WCW stuff? I mean, sure, but like we didn't talk about any of the stuff that it stands up to. Like, it's kind of like the like he started his rise with like a feud against Johnny B. Bad and kind of ended his career with a feud against Johnny B. Bad. Only Christian becomes much better than Johnny B. Bad, and arguably was already great in 2002. It's just he needed somebody who wasn't being built for bigger things, which Edge was in 2001, in order to like actualize his own heel character. And that Page was that valuable, like it as like an in-ring general figure still, I think speaks a lot to how great he was and how good he was. And it's also crazy to me that they did not keep him as like a coach once it became clear that like his neck was so bad that he couldn't continue as a full-time wrestler. That's one of the weird things about Page's career to me, is that like so much of his dedication and like his own like willingness to like bust ass at like the WCW power plant for years suggests to me this guy would be the ultimate coach for like young up and coming wrestlers. And he never really was and that's a failing on WWE. His TNA stuff
and Dixie Carter,
yeah. Well, and Rob Zombie. He has his dalliances in the motion pictures. You didn't watch his TNA stuff for this episode. I can't say I blame you, except that it is funny to see Raven in a Valkyrie hat. And it's also really funny for like the DDP Raven feud, like one of the cool things of 1998 being used to set up a main event run for Eric Watts that never happens. The DDP Jarrett feud being the springboard to a Monty Brown heel turn that really only works to not make a main event face in Monty Brown that TNA really needed at the time. Like the fucking like his teaming up with Kevin Nash and Sean Waltman is like, it's just, but like in all of those things, it's so interesting because like Page is never giving anything less than maximum effort. Like throughout like the course of this syllabus that we've put together, the only match that we have presented like for folks to watch that I would say DDP is giving less than like 50% to is his teaming up with Kojima to wrestle Sting and the Great Muta on what is for all four men a paid vacation in Hawaii. And I think that says a lot about him. But I'm interested to hear what you think about Paige's the scant amount of WWE work that I made you watch.
I think largely speaking, I was out on wrestling at this point. I was thinking about that a lot.
Oh, but it was so great. It was so cool. The WWE roster was so loaded at the time.
That's one of the notes I have here. And I also do know that WrestleMania 18 is one of those ones that is widely celebrated as being, quote, the best WrestleMania of all time. That is not a thing I fucking care about. So if it's true, shouts to everybody who enjoyed it. But
I to one of the 5 good ones.
Yeah, right. I had a great year in 2002. That was an awesome year, generally speaking, for me. So I'm across the board. I don't got a whole lot to say about this, and I made clear when we were talking about Cena, there's a particular era of WWE that I'm just not interested in really like reliving, because I think it fundamentally broke the brains of so many human beings who will wake up one day, hop on the internet, and decide to type AEW needs a brand split. I just largely, I'm rambling more about this era of WWE than I care to. What I thought about this match particularly, was that with it being a stacked match, with it being a stacked roster and it being a pretty stacked card, generally speaking, it just really stood out to me just in terms of making a case for Page, was that he's able to have a really interesting 8-minute match on such a big stage at such an advanced point in his career. After he hasn't been wrestling for, is it 18 months now? Is it longer than that?
I mean, he'd been wrestling. Like, I think that he got injured. Okay. He got injured in one of the Undertaker matches and took some time off and came back, but it wasn't like an extended break. Like, it was a couple of months.
Okay. But yeah, I think just generally speaking, more than anything, I was just like, damn, sick to see DDP like get a fucking good match with a great worker early in a card. I think that's the majority of what I have to say about the WWE run. I do think that we should, since you brought it up, at minimum, spend a few minutes talking about his retirement match in AEW 2020, largely because I have a joke that I want to make and I don't want to let it get away from me. I am glad that it only took us 7 episodes to cover a QT Marshall match. He has now been mentioned on more episodes than Bryan Danielson, and after this, we will have covered more of QT Marshall's matches than we would have Terry Funk's. Really makes you think. All right, I could go home now, but I just need to get that joke out of the way.
Damn. Wow. Damn. It does make me think.
Does make you think.
I fucked up.
Does make you think.
I fucked up somehow.
Is QT Marshall one of the greatest wrestlers?
How did DDP not wrestle Terry Funk? That's got to be one of the great failings of WCW 2000 is not getting that match out there.
Yeah. That would have been a great one.
The Funker wrestle Johnny the Bull, which they should have, because Johnny the Bull was a psychopath. Yeah. No, I'm satisfied with that. I think that is basically what you can say about DDP and WWE, really, and most wrestlers who made a go of it in early 2000s post WCW, WWE, is that like it was a real all the stars are here situation, and
Vince isn't going to give those guys a chance in the first place.
Yeah,
like it's just not going to happen.
No, like getting like maximizing your 6 to 8 minutes is more than most got at that time. So shout out to DDP, the three-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, which, saying that he was the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, I'm going to ask you first, but also ask if you told me that you had a story about DDP and Dusty Rhodes and the WCW Championship, and if that doesn't tie in to whether or not DDP is the greatest wrestler of all time to you.
Oh, it will.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Perfect. Well, then in that case, Orchid, I'm going to ask you the question that we end all of our discussions with here on the patron saints of Six Sons of Bitches, and that is Diamond Dallas Page the greatest wrestler of all time?
Yeah. So that story about Dusty is that I'm pulling this from Guy Evans's book, Nitro. And he says this is a story that if you were within Page's earshot around this time, you absolutely heard this story. So during a phone call with his mentor, Dusty Rhodes, in 1994, Page was lamenting that he was never going to be somebody as successful as Dusty or Hogan or even Nash. And he was saying that he was fine with that, and he was absolutely okay, like staying in the mid card. To which Dusty said to him, "If you don't think you're ever going to be the world champion, then what the fuck are you even doing this for?" Page then wrote down, after he got off the phone, on a piece of paper, a goal for himself, which was that within 5 years he would become world champion. The day that he wrote that down was on November 28th, 1994, which was about 4 years and I think 11 months. My math's going to be off. From the day when Page would eventually win the WCW title. And I think that does segue perfectly into answering your question. To call Page Falkenberg Jr.'s rise to stardom Cinderella story would be a significant understatement. When he was 12 years old, he was hit by a car, and that crash broke his knee and sent him hurling 42 feet from the point of the impact. When he started training to be a wrestler, as you mentioned, he re-injured the same knee and was told he was never going to be able to wrestle again. As the head bouncer at the infamous Norma Jean's nightclub in Fort Myers, Florida, he was a larger-than-life character, talking the ears off of road-worn workers like Terry Taylor and Jake the Snake Roberts as he comped them drinks and scored them cocaine. His infectious charm led him to the AWA, and that infectious charm, combined with a singular ability as the only member of the WCW roster with a conscience, translated seamlessly with the Southern wrestling audience. So it's no shock to me that Page, one of the few people in the industry who doesn't have a single hater, became an era-defining star and excelled in a comedically mismanaged company. He was a dolphin among sharks, a creature too beautiful and too earnest for the waters he swam, and yet he survived. And he more than survived. He thrived. And he did all this while being effortlessly fucking cool, while bagging one of the most beautiful women who has ever lived, who somehow still has incredibly kind things to say about him, even though they've been divorced for 30 years. He is, without question, fucking the greatest wrestler ever. And anyone who thinks otherwise does not deserve to have an opinion about wrestling or, quite frankly, anything else. So yeah, he's the motherfucking greatest wrestler ever. Colette, what say you? Is Diamond Dallas Page the greatest wrestler of all time?
Diamond Dallas Page is such a great wrestler that in 1998, I hated Bruce Springsteen because there could only be one cool person from New Jersey in my brain, and that cool person was Diamond Dallas Page. I've since come around on the boss. I love Bruce. I may love Bruce more than DDP, but that's only because Bruce Springsteen songs make me cry more often than wrestling matches do. That being said, DDP's story of perseverance in the face of incredible odds, starting wrestling as a full-time wrestler in his 30s, becoming great not due to any sort of natural gift or connection to anybody, but through sheer grit and determination, rising through the ranks, becoming the blue-collar face of a profession that too frequently forgets that its roots are in the blue-collar working class of this country. I get a little teary-eyed about Diamond Dallas Page. Watching his matches is so fulfilling as an adult, arguably more fulfilling than it was as a child, because I get not just why I liked him when I was younger, but I get why my dad loved DDP. I understand why my mom liked DDP. I understand why, 10,000 people in an arena in Atlanta, Georgia love DDP. And to see that happen gradually over time, to see a man's dream be realized in interminably, painfully slow motion until at last it finally happens and the whole fucking world is feeling the bang. That is a story that does not happen in wrestling very often. I would say that it has really only happened in wrestling once. it is completely unique to DDP. And then when you factor in all the other stuff about how he's a great person and he's helped a lot of people overcome their own demons and has been a sounding board for people in trouble, and no one said a bad thing about him, and yoga, and he beat Jay-Z in court over the diamond cutter symbol, which I think just meant that Jay-Z just paid him and gave him money and was like, I don't have time for this, but still he got money for the diamond cutter symbol from Jay-Z. All of that is like, it's extremely, it's only an America story. But more than that, it's an only in pro wrestling story. And, you don't get many of those that are as charming and frankly heartwarming as DDP's. So yeah, I would be out of my fucking head if I said that he was anything less than the greatest wrestler of all time. I have believed that since I was a child, and I will believe that until they put me in the fucking dirt. Bang.
Goddamn bang. Goddamn motherfucking right. And congratulations on rigging the wheel so that everyone who we've talked about is somebody who you fucking adore, including the one person that I suggested, somebody I do not like. Which leads us
even better. People keep putting names on the wheel who are also guys from WCW that I like.
I know. We're going to get murdered on the J-Cup server if we keep this up. And all right. Well, on that note, let's bring us to what all of you are here for, which is the segment in which we pick our next subject, the wheel.
Spin the wheel. Make the deal. Spin the wheel, make the deal.
The wheel. Yeah, we're going to find out who's next, as it were. Orchid and I recorded this episode back to back with the previous one, so if you have put any names on the list and they're not available, or we've somehow become competent enough to have a website and you can see who's on the list and your person isn't on this week, sorry, but consider it a 1996 WCW worldwide taping. Sometimes the champion is crowned ahead of their eventual match before the MGM Disney MGM Studios audience in Orlando, Florida. But yeah, Orchid, we should really roll this goddamn wheel, spin it, make the deal, see who we're covering next week.
Yeah. I would love to do that, but unfortunately, the thing that we have to do first is you have to add 2 new people.
I gotta add 2 new people. Oh my god!
And you have to add another name. Do you want me to go first? I'll happily go ahead and go first.
I want you to go first.
Okay. Well, I tried to cheat, and I'm not going to do that. But I'll just be as transparent as humanly possible. I would love if we could get like a little bit of a gimmick episode on here. And I also know full well that the fine folks that are AEW fans would love it if we covered more AEW wrestlers. So I am going to put who is, without question, the single greatest person who has ever laced up a pair of boots for the All Elite Wrestling Company, Satnam Singh.
Okay. I like that. I'm also going to put a gimmick guy on there, someone who there's not a lot of footage available of. I'm going to say Lord Alfred Hayes.
All right.
Lord Alfred Hayes needs to be on there. Who else would be like a fun, like one episode guy?
As a reminder, I don't like women. I don't just remember that from our last episode. So,
is Tomohiro Ishii on the list?
Tomohiro Ishii is not on the list.
Let's throw Ishii up on the list. He's probably more than a one. He might be a 1 episode guy, but
I think he's a 1 episode guy, but a fucking solid.
Yeah, that's a 2 hour. That's a 2 hour guy.
Sure is. All right, so we have 44 names on the wheel, as Colette alluded to. We will eventually figure out a way to let y'all see them. In the short term, I will be uploading graphics. Colette did not have to be transparent. We could have got away with tricking y'all, but apparently
we didn't spin the wheel last time around, so
yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, here we go. I'm about to spin this sucker.
I love the wheel noise.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yes.
That's pretty fucking sick, if I do say so myself. Our next subject will be the one, the only Sarah Del Rey. I do like women, just FYI. That was a joke. But yeah, as a woman, I love women. I can't wait to cover somebody I have only seen one match of.
Somebody that
so
I think I've
very fucking
written
excited
a
about this.
Sarah Del Rey is the greatest wrestler of all time essay about like 15 times.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining. Come back next week. We will have our episode of Sarah Del Rey for you. And yeah, very much looking forward to seeing you on some fucking side. I don't know. Goodbye.